Alexander Hamilton.
Shut the fuck up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to John Dudley Speaks. I'm your host, Sebastian. Los Angeles experimental hip-hop trio Clipping has been active for a little over 15 years now. Their inception dating back to Daveed Diggs, William Hudson, and Jonathan Snipes' remixing of rap over brash, abrasive, industrial heavy beats. But they clearly felt that there was a lot more to this sound, and what could be pulled from it, leading the trio to eventually drop Mid-City in 2013, which would eventually grant them a spot on Sub Pop. Eschewing the labels of noise rap, Clipping carved out their own identity by following the legacy of the greats before them on their 2014 debut studio record, merging 90s gangsta rap with hardcore embellishments, while their 2016 record, Splendor and Misery, dared to frame its storytelling through an Odyssean framework. Personally though, I didn't find myself getting into Clipping until the back-to-back winners of There Existed an Addiction to Blood and Visions of Bodies Being Burned, both albums superbly entertaining horrorcore streaks that are brilliantly incorporated into the noise-inflected foundations, specifically on the latter, which is, in my opinion, one of the best albums of this decade so far, an amazing snapshot of political turmoil in the USA during 2020. 5 agonizing years away, and Clipping is finally back with Dead Channel Sky, a decidedly futuristic tour into cyberpunk-influenced experimental hip-hop, and like their best works before it, it's a far-reaching spectacle, one full of unstoppably brazen mixes of forward-thinking instrumentation and some of the most authoritative lyricism you'll hear all year. Produced by Clipping themselves with the help of music collective Bit Panic, the idea of bringing to life these gargantuan, maximalist cyberpunk aesthetics makes a lot of this record feel like it's straight out of a new big-budget video game, with a piercing late 90s Matrix-inflected dial tone effect on the intro. Clipping establishes the tone right away as well as the musical palette, leading us into the apocalyptic battle royale, loading screen type instrumental of Dominator, filled with a well-implemented central sample of techno-group Human Resource, as well as smashing programmed drums that lend the track a sweeping momentum. Speaking of momentum, Change the Channel was absolutely insane. The breakneck speed of the Chemical Brothers influenced drum patterns, and the primal scream synth chaos is vibe setting at its finest, through its echoing of 90s techno and rave pastiches. And though Go and Simple Degradation emulate a sort of assimilating into a system, the switch-ups on Code and Scams are refreshing as hell, emphasizing a flashy late 80s Big Daddy Kane, Public Enemy style boom clap foundation, but offering a ton of space to play with embellishments, much like a mid-2010s Kanye West production would. The Prodigy and Aphex Twin are a heavy instrumental inspiration on this record too, with Dodger, Malleus, Ask What Happened, and Polaroids waxing and waning between propulsive progressions and soothing interludes, cinching each transition together with unique and viscerally robotic splashes that are endlessly entrenching. However, the 80s Depeche Mode dance pop of Mirrorshades Part 2 and the Death Grips industrial indie rap of Welcome Home Warrior provide enough distance from the cyberpunk ambiance of the record, utilizing the form in a different way to communicate the same sonic message of obscurity and dissonance. And that's why this record is such a massive triumph in instrumentation, as it never falters in setting the scene, yet doesn't become basic in its aims to do so. Taking a page out of William Gibson's Neuromancer quite literally, Dead Channel Sky deals with pretty hardcore themes surrounding modern dystopia, all captured with a futuristic lens, and for the most part, Clipping really nail it. Sure, there are bars here and there that might be a little too on the nose and reactionary to the wave of exhausting US politics, especially post-pandemic to now, but Daveed Diggs explores the ills of hyper-capitalism with a bold exclamation point, stating a worldview that many people across our society would agree with. The world's pretty fucked up right now. Dominator points out corporate greed and incessant shiny advertisements clouding up our sky, while that sky and that atmosphere is literally dying. Run It brilliantly tells a story that illuminates gaudiness and the sexiness of the ideas behind drugs, yet is brutally honest about the destruction of drug addiction. And Polaroids is an enthralling tour through the torture of relived regret and the reminder of trauma that we essentially want to act like it doesn't exist. All of these ideas are underlined by a foundation that tie back to the concept built around this cyberpunk framework, and working from that template, it's some of Diggs' best work yet. Change the Channel is extraordinary in its storytelling, nodding to the Afrofuturism of Splendor and Misery, and calling back to the revolutionary tone of that album, while tethering it to the idea of global paranoia and disorder. But it's all done through the intriguing motif of hacking and updating the OS, making it all feel clever and disorienting. Dodger, and particularly Mirrorshades Part 2, explore the red pill ideology quite a bit, letting us, the listener, in on Clipping's rebellion, forcing us to inquire about the new normal, painting a picture that's enticing and makes you question the truth of reality. But then, at the same time, Diggs is able to craft such catchy melodies and slick hooks, like on Scams, that don't pull on the same threads of global catastrophe, but have a strong proclivity for making sure we still still have a good time as the world ends. So for him to find that thin line, that's extremely impressive. In past clipping albums, especially their early work, I was always torn on Daveed Diggs' speed-heavy delivery and his fairly organized and neat flows, mainly because I think down to personal taste, it just lacked character for my liking. But his horrorcore-inflected flows on Visions of Bodies Being Burned really grabbed me in 2020, mainly because of how much vibrance and energy he was able to capture. And I'm so excited that Dead Channel Sky continues to build on that, with even more twists on that style of performance. He pushes himself, and it's some of his most commanding work on the mic. Firstly, I want to point out the Bling era inspired laid-back bars on Scams, which are absolutely infectious and minimal in the best fashion. I also immensely enjoyed the low-key, near-spoken word of Mirrorshades Part 2, which is such a vast detour from what we usually hear from Diggs, so it stands out quite boldly. Simultaneously, though, Diggs maintains his usual unstoppably fast bars with resolve, showing off his control on the mic without being overbearing or distracting, because the quick-laid bars are furious yet snappy, achieving an articulate ability that most MCs struggle to gain, mainly due to the chaotic pulse and whip-smart energy, something that change the channel, run it, and ask what happened have its spades. So with such an inclination to favor these excellently executed acrobatics, Diggs shows off his skill while not overplaying his hand. With 20 songs that clock in at 53 minutes, this album moves with purpose and vigor. Right off the bat with intro, Diggs immerses us in this world, and moving into Dominator, change the channel and run it, the ferocity serves as the engine for this album to run on. Though the interludes don't always serve as the best connective tissue for this album's thematic threads, they're serviceable for the most part to get us to points like Code and Dodger, and tracks like Scams and Polaroids excellently convey the aesthetics and vibe of this record, while Mirrorshades Part 2 and Welcome Home Warrior keep us thinking up into the end with the massive closer of Ask What Happened. Moral of the story is that clipping has no interest in doing their vision for anyone, as the pacing of this record rolls along without pulling any punches, but the catchiness of these melodies and the attention to detail in the instrumentals keeps the audience invested at every movement of this album.
Work and get the work and put it in the pot. Mix the motherfucker till it rock. Roll it till it fit into the needle, then you stick it in the middle of the hood and watch them run it.
Dead Channel Sky earns its keep as a cyberpunk banger of a concept record that is no holds barred, completely focused, locked in on its critiques of capitalism. So I think that while it's not the best clipping album, it forges a new path ahead for the trio with unwavering, vicious societal observations that match their sound and vision. But hey, this is my perspective. If you're a clipping fan, this is one of their best. And if you're in search of a cyberpunk-heavy odyssey into the ills of capitalism and corporate greed and control, you're gonna enjoy this one. Alright, that's all I got. Bye!